This dromaeosaur is roaming his territory, however, he is all alone. This is his story. It is a time known as the Cretaceous period, and the movement of the continents is breaking up the northern and southern land masses. Forests are very common, however there are some open spaces. Rivers are quite common in this area. This magnificent habitat is home to many animals. Meet Patch. He is a Utahraptor. The Utahraptor is a member of the dromaeosaur family, also known as raptors. In fact, it is the largest of the dromaeosaurs, growing up to 23 feet. Like all dromaeosaurs, it facts a large claw on one toe for each foot. However, unlike other dromaeosaurs, Utahraptors have smaller legs and are more robust, and cannot pursue prey for very long. Patch and his mate are searching for a new place to live. Despite being heavily built, they can run up to 30 miles an hour, weighing up to 2 tons. Utahraptor was one of the first dromaeosaurs, and the group would expand throughout the Cretaceous. This is Patch and his mate's territory, as raptors generally are very social animals. Patch is the leader of the two, and normally does the hunting and eating of fresh kill first. Their feathers are for keeping warm during the night. However, the feathers can also be used as a display. However, Patch himself doesn't have an extravagant pattern of feathers. Patch is searching for prey, while leaving his mate to guard their territory. This system is how dinosaurs get certain their priorities done. There is no shortage of amazing, fascinating creatures, such as this massive sauropod Psittarosaurus. Growing up to 49 feet, this sauropod is closely related to the Jurassic dinosaur, Camarasaurus. Like other dinosaurs and modern-day birds, Psittarosaurus would swallow small stones and rocks to help break down plant matter. Sauropods normally live in large herds. However, male Psittarosaurus normally live alone, while the females and young live in large herds. The forests near the equator are full of conifers, ferns, and ginkgos. However, now during the Cretaceous, there is a new landmark in plant evolution. The first simple flowers have evolved, adding a dash of color to an otherwise green world. This has sparked a new relationship with insects, attracted by the color and smell. This wasp is feeding on the pollen within, who will unwittingly spread it to other flowers, speeding up the reproduction process. The plants that have evolved this process are beginning to flourish, and soon will dominate the flora of the world. Another major landmark in evolution, this time in fauna, the first birds have arrived. Flying dinosaurs that share the same ancestors as Utahraptor. They are covered in feathers and cover their body and arms, creating wings. At this time of year, they have eggs to protect and would fight off any predators. The Psittarosaurus feeds on the leaves of nearby trees, not disturbing the nearby birds. However, Psittarosaurus is not the only large herbivores in the area. Nearby, a herd of Iguanodon roam. Iguanodon can grow up to 33 feet, allowing them to reach all sorts of plants. Even though they walk on 4 legs, they can easily walk on 2. Iguanodon was the second dinosaur to be discovered in 1822. Gideon Mantle and his wife went on a walk. However, they found some teeth, and due to their similarity to iguanas, they were named Iguanodon. For defense, they have thumb spikes on each of their forearms, though they were originally thought to be horns. Iguanodon is the first animal to have back teeth that can grind up vegetation before swallowing. While most dinosaurs can only crudely slice food, this ability to chew speeds digestion of even the toughest plant material. This is so successful that Iguanodon can be found on other continents such as Europe. The Iguanodontian group, in which Iguanodon is part of, flourished from the Middle Jurassic until the Middle Cretaceous, until being restricted during the Late Cretaceous to small islands of Europe due to competition with hadrosaurs. Iguanodon only had one replacement tooth at a time for each position. The upper jaw held up to 29 teeth per side, with none at the front of the jaw and the lower jaw. The numbers differ because teeth in the lower jaw are broader than those in the upper. Early fossil remains were fragmentary, which led to much speculation on the posture and nature of Iguanodon. Iguanodon was initially portrayed as a quadrupedal horn-nosed beast. However, as more bones were discovered, Mantle observed that the forelimbs were much smaller than the hind limbs. In fact, Mantle's ideas about Iguanodon were the same for dinosaurs in general. This is Crystal Palace Park in England, constructed in 1853. Back then, dinosaurs were thought to be rhino-like, slow, lumbering creatures. By the time of the release of the 1925 film, The Lost World, dinosaurs were thought to look like this. Amazing feats in filmmaking at the time, but they were still inaccurate. The Brontosaurus should not have such a bendy necks. The Allosaurus should not be standing up straight. Both should not be dragging their tails. Luckily, over the years, new finds and discoveries help us make much more accurate reconstructions of dinosaurs. The skull was structured in such a way that as it closed, the bones holding the teeth in the upper jaw would bow out. This would cause the lower surfaces of the upper jaw teeth to rub against the upper surface of the lower jaw's teeth, grinding anything caught in between. One animal that is often seen around Iguanodon herds is the Ankylosaur gastonia. At around 5 meters, it is much larger than its ancestors such as Gogorhiliosaurus. Covered in armor, it defends itself with its powerful tail.
The climate in the time of the dinosaurs is warm and tropical. There are only 2 seasons, dry and wet. Now it is the time of year for tropical storms. In moments, the short stretch of coast is drenched. Welcome relief for thirsty plants and lean rivers. But it is a
Patch spots the Iguanodon herd and decides to go on a hunt. However, Iguanodon are powerful, so Patch must find an individual alone that is either young, old, or weak. Patch spots the Gastonia, wandering away from the Iguanodons, so he decides to catch it instead of the Iguanodons. However, the Gastonia has formidable defenses, so Patch decides to stick with the Iguanodons. By liquid bodies, animals such as this Iguanodons are swarmed by mosquitoes, being able to reach soft inside such as the inside of the earth. Patch spots an old Iguanodon feeding on some plants. He has been left behind at the beach by his herd. However, he is now an easy target to Patch, who is on the hunt. Patch gives chase. Patch now feeds on the dead Iguanodon, as his mate is basically eating inside the Iguanodon's stomach, from the inside out. Later, Patch is guarding his territory while his mate is getting water. However, he is not the top predator, An allosaur attempts to steal the area in which Patch is resting in. After Allosaurus went extinct in the late Jurassic, up in the northern continents, the allosaur group is declining. However, in North America, they survive but are on the verge of extinction. This species in the allosaur group is quite small. However, in areas in the south between Texas and Antarctica, the allosaur group is flourishing and creating a subgroup named Coccorodontosaurid, which would include Acrocanthosaurus, Eucarchia, Kelmasaurus, Mapiosaurus, and Giganotosaurus. However, by the end of the Middle Cretaceous, the allosaur group and all its subgroups would be extinct. The allosaur drives Patch and his mate of their territory. Here, the allosaur is the top predator. At night, Patch and his mate are staying at the beach. Patch's mate is now catching some bugs to eat. Meanwhile, Patch keeps watch. However, Patch notices something very strange. The waters of the bay recede in one great sheet. The sea now builds like a dorsal back of a sea monster. Even Patch's mate notices this. A massive tsunami now races toward the shore. As a massive tsunami breaks the shores of the east coast of North America, it is marked by a final mark of defiance. The great wave locks the animals in a slow-motion vortex of water and debris. Only a small amount of animals will escape, as the water fills their lungs. One small predator evades death. He clings to life on a floating piece of mud. He is all alone and is drifting across the sea. His mate is dead. For the next few months, he will be restricted to this mud. As the second day begins, Patch's lifeboat is carried north by a small current. He must to save his strength and energy. The only thing keeping him alive is being able to swim and catch nearby fish. In order for it to be able to drink, it drinks the blood of the fish it eats. However, for Patch, food and water isn't much of a problem. We know this by looking at their modern relatives. Alligators can go a year without food, and large birds, which is the dromaeosaur's closest relatives, can more 2 days without food. With this information, we know dromaeosaurs can go days without food and water. Days later, Patch is very weak and sick and desperately needs to reach land. After 7 months, Patch, very weak, has washed up on shore, but he is on the shores of modern-day England. He can barely get up. He is exhausted and starving. For a second, he wonders why the sea is so calm. He has no memory of his old life. Soaring above is the pterosaur Ornithocheirus, with a wingspan of up to 20 feet. Curiosity overcomes the pterosaurs. Something new washed up on the beach. But the pterosaur is not the only animals nearby who are curious. Drawn to the scene due to all the noise, it is a very small version of Patch. The pterosaur is put on notice, and despite being larger, the pterosaur knows the small raptor may have a nearby pack, so the Ornithocheirus flees. Patch has never seen an animal this small be so bold. However, he gets up. However, the raptor, shocked at his large size, flees. Patch notices their similarities, attempts to follow him, believing he could lead him to others like him. Patch wanders into a swamp while delirious. He notices animals he's never seen before, such as this Baryonyx. This early relative of Spinosaurus could grow up to 33 feet. However, it didn't hunt on land. In fact, it used its long snout to catch fish. It was a fish eater. It even had special teeth to grip slippery fish. However, despite it wading through shallow water here, in deeper water, it could swim. Also, its sharp claws were for grabbing fish. Baryonyx had a rudimentary secondary palate, similar to crocodiles, but unlike most theropod dinosaurs, a rugo's roughly wrinkled surface suggests the presence of a horny pad in the roof of the mouth. The nasal bones were fused, which distinguished Baryonyx from other spinosaurids. Despite hunting in the water, Baryonyx will go onto land to rest. Baryonyx isn't the top predator here, but we meet the top predator later. Another nearby animal is the small ornithischian Hypsilophodon. It's small but fast. Like most small dinosaurs, Hypsilophodon was bipedal. It ran on two legs. Its entire body was built for running. Numerous anatomical features aided this, such as lightweight, minimized skeleton, low aerodynamic posture, long legs, and stiff tail, immobilized by ossified tendons for balance. Despite living in the last of the periods in which non-avian dinosaurs walked the earth, the Cretaceous, Hypsilophodon had a number of seemingly primitive features. For example, there were 5 digits on each hand and 4 on each foot, as well as the fact that Hypsilophodon has 5 fingers. Patch is amazed by these animals, but he is exhausted. Soon time FLIs. Patch finds the edge of a forest and decides to rest. And soon he goes to sleep. The next morning, Patch notices that the small raptor has returned and is curiously walking toward Patch. Patch notices this and gets up. However, the smaller raptor gets scared and makes a run for it. Patch follows him once again. Patch gets his first normal sip of water in months. Now he begins his journey to find others like him. During his journey, he spots animals very similar to the ones in his old home, such as this European version of Gastonia, called Polycanthus. Polycanthus could grow up to 16 feet, its armor was spiky, and also had a powerful tail. Being up to 2 tons, unlike Gastonia, it didn't stay around Iguanodon herds. In fact, it was solitary. In fact, here, there is a larger subspecies of Iguanodon, however the males live alone, as you can see here. Above it is the sauropod Utahraptor. Utahraptor could grow up to 49 feet. There is even an early relative of the Tyrannosaur group. This is Utahraptor. Though it had not yet developed the bone-crushing teeth of later Tyrannosaurs' small arms, and was only 13 feet. It has the structure of baby Tyrannosaurs into the future. As Patch continues to wander, he notices there is none other like him. Patch tries calling out, but the more he calls out, the more he gets lonely. Patch calls and calls, but nobody responds. He has been washed up to a land without others like him, and he's only an animal, and doesn't know why. Patch is now very, very sad. Patch notices animals of the same species living together in a group. This only makes Patch more upset. As the third day begins, Patch begins to hunt in his new home. He catches a small Oviraptor rosaurid as he begins to feed. His night will be one of his most eventful nights in his life. A thunderstorm begins to form over the forest. However, that means lightning. A fire sparks the middle of the forest, igniting a forest fire. In 20 minutes, it is already covering huge sections of forest. The forest fire is unstoppable. Down in the valley, the air pressure plummets. Creating a vacuum that sucks in flames. The flames go up like a powder cake, building a wall of fire. The front of the fire burns hottest and fastest. Moving across the valley floor at 9 miles an hour. Patch can run twice that speed. But he can't keep the pace up forever. The forest is now a firestorm, 1800 degrees. Hot enough to melt solid aluminum. The panicked animals race up the forest slopes, but fire goes faster uphill. Some lucky creatures escape below the flames. However, large animals have nowhere to hide. It is now a race against time. For Patch, time is running out. Patch has survived, though he has a few burns. He has grown accustomed to living on the island. However, spots the real top predator here, the slightly larger Neovenator. They decide to fight. Patch's claws pierce through the top predator. The Neovenator may be bigger, but Patch is faster. Patch will soon become top predator. Behind him are the burnt remains of the forest. A few days passed, and now that Patch has forgotten his old life, he has cemented himself as the top predator. However, one thing remains. He will always be alone. In the next episode, we will visit the fascinating world of Antarctica.